Hi there, my name's Andy Stevens and my company's called Eclipse Property Solutions. We carry out residential extensions, refurbishments, kitchens, bathrooms, etc. And today we're going to show you in a few easy steps how to replace this carpet and lay a laminate flooring.
Cut the carpet carefully with a Stanley knife and pull up the edges, then roll it away and remove. Using a crowbar or lever, remove the gripper rods from the edge of the room. You'll need gloves for this as the spikes are exceptionally sharp.
But in order to get the best finish you need a solid, as level as possible floor. But as you can see, this floorboard's loose.
Remove loose floorboards and check underneath for pipes and cables before reattaching.
Firstly, mark out the joists so you know where the screws are going. Secondly, use your drill with a pilot bit to pilot the floorboards, because if an old floorboard has a thick screw straight into it, more than likely it'll split. And then you use your impact driver or drill to fix the screw and secure the floorboard.
Remove all the underlay staples and remove or hammer any nail heads flush with the floorboards.
So the floor is now prepped, cleaned. Now it's time to lay the underlay. There's many different types of underlay. I would recommend going with the best your budget can cover. This one, for example, does sound and thermal insulation, and it's also got moisture protection. So if you had a spill, or if, worst case scenario, a pipe went in years to come, this will help protect the floor. Usually I'd advise running the underlay the opposite direction to the flooring, but in a room like this where we're a bit limited with space, and because of the size, it doesn't actually matter if we run it the same way as the flooring. But usually in bigger rooms, I'd run the underlay one way and then run the flooring the opposite direction so it's cross-laid. This is only 3.5mm thick. You can see the edge of where you're going up to, which in this case is the fitted wardrobe. Leave a small gap, approximately 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be exact. And then just run the blade along. And you can see you've got a little gap there and it's ready to lay the flooring.
Using any gaffer or fabric tape, tape the edges of the underlay together, ensuring the underlay doesn't overlap underneath. When opening your flooring, don't cut down the centre of the box, as this may damage the board. Cut down the edges or tear the box open with your hands.
So there's two different types of flooring in terms of wooden flooring. You've obviously got your solid wood, you've got your engineered and your laminate. But the two types I was referring to is how you fit them. So with this, you've got a tongue and you've got a groove, but there's no glue, so there's no mess. And also when you glue boards, you have to clamp them and pull them tight until they start setting and the glue goes off. With this one, which is called click system, but you literally push it in, so the tongue goes into there and you push down and then it clicks. So there's no glue. This is a dry fit, so you haven't got glue going everywhere. The best way of starting out, you could start in the corners, but we've got the the flow and return coming out the floor for the radiators. I always find it easier to start on these, because if, for example, you needed it here, right in the middle of the board, if you start here on the wall, it is a bit of a difficult cut. I've centered the board in the middle of the pipe. The measurement from the edge of the board to the skirting board is 37.5 inches. The board width is 7.5 inches, which means you've got 5 full boards, less a small expansion gap across to the edge of the room. That is the center, 15mm pipe, so it's 7.5 center. But if you add a few mil for play and expansion, the same as on the floor, 12mm. Line up your two pieces of wood. We're going to use a 22mm spade bit. Clamp your wood firmly so it doesn't move during the cut, and then drill between the two pieces of wood, making a semicircle cut in each board. So we're now going to cut the small cut to go behind the radiator pipe up to the wall. The gap is 50mm, less 12mm for the expansion gap. These are cut of 38, and we're just going to cut it on a chop saw. So here's the two cut pieces, the main board and then the small cut to go behind the pipe. Simply put it behind there and then you slot, you can hear it click into place, and that is your perfect cut around the radiator pipe, ready for the rest of the floor to be laid. So we've got 37.75 inch there. and that is 37 3/4 inch.
Measure the distance from the end of your board, ignoring the tongue, to the edge of the room, and then subtract 12mm for an expansion gap, and then cut to size using a circular saw or hand saw.
So we've got the cut, and this is the final piece to slot in. So line your edges up, because it's click system, no glue. Slot in, and that's your first run finished. So it's very important to leave this expansion gap. The floor will move depending on changes in temperature, humidity, etc. The offcut from the first run, as you can see, this is the cut end, this is the tongue. Rather than throw it, it's always good to start the next run from it. So as you can see from here, when it goes in here, it means you've used the offcut and also you've staggered the joints, so you haven't got them close together, and then you run the same again, full board cut, the cut end starts here, and that's how you stagger your joints. You will see a slight unevenness. That's because where the tongue sits in the groove, it obviously pulls itself down, but as you add more lines of boards, the weight will just level it out. So the hard bit's done. We've removed all the carpet and the underlay, put the underlay down for the wooden flooring, taped it, we've set out the first couple of lines done, and to be honest, the rest of it's the easy bit. Use your cut end to start, stagger your joints, leave your expansion gaps, and that's your floor laid. Often it needs pulling tight, and obviously you can't get anything behind here. So just use one of these. You can get them on any high street retailer or even any tool shops. I just think it's called a flooring bar. It's got a tongue here which is lapped down. It's worth, when you do the rest of the room, don't put it on the tongue because it can damage it. If there's a gap here where you can just sit it on the edge of the floor and then literally just hold it and give it a tap, and then you can see it pulls all the joints tight along there. So we finished that section of the room. We've moved all the furniture over there, which gives us a clear space to finish off this side. We've prepped the floor. A couple of the boards were loose, so we've put screws in to hold them down. We're now going to run the underlay across. We've got a little cut to do around the other rad pipe here, and we've taken a measurement. We've got nearly 7 full boards, so we've got a nice finish here rather than just a slither, and then that will take us through into the doorway, ready for the scotia beads. So we've cut all the boards to the rest of the room, and we've just left with this small bit here. Unless you're exceptionally lucky, you are going to end up having to make a small cut along the length of the board. Now the first thing to do is measure what the gap is. So that's 196 in millimetres. Bearing in mind you've got an expansion gap, so that will take it down to 184. And as you know, with these boards, they're 190. So we've got a small rip to make off the length of the board to fit in. It is worth checking that this wall is square. The easy way to do that is get your measurement off the skirting board to the edge of the board, and then go sort of most of the way along the length of the board, and you can check it again. And already you can see that this is a few mil out. So what I've done is I've made a measurement there and a measurement here. Now this is 12 mil and that's 4 mil. So you're actually going to have not a straight cut. So the best thing to do is take your marks and then use something spirit level if you've got one. If not, just a straight. You can use an existing floorboard if they're straight. Draw your lines, meet them up, and just put a pencil line along the length. And as you can see, you've got a very small cut here that goes down to a wider cut here. There's several ways of doing it. You can use a handsaw if you clamp this to a bench and run the handsaw down there, or if you've got the luxury of having a table saw, you can set that up where the blade will just cut down. So the floor's all down, everything's cut, expansion gap all the way around. And now, because we're not taking the skirting boards off, we've got to cover that expansion gap. There's many different profile beading. This is called a scotia bead. It will basically lap up the wall and then lap onto the floor. And this bit under here will be your expansion joint. So you won't see it, but it'll allow the floor to move. And rather than just doing a straight cut, which would be straight across here, I think it's always best to do a mitre cut, 45 degrees, which you can do on a mitre box with a handsaw, or you can use a chop saw at 45 degrees. Two ways of fixing it. You can either glue it, or I prefer pinning it. You get a bit of movement with a pin, and also you haven't got to stand here, even using rapid set glue, and hold it. So you literally hold it in place, you know that's it because it can't go anywhere, and you use a second fix nail gun for ease, and you just push it in and pull the trigger, and that will fire the pin through here and fix it into the skirting board. If you fix it into the skirting board and not the floor, that allows the floor to move. So we're all done, flooring's all down, scotia beads are mitered and cut in. It is worth, just before you finish and give it a quick hoover or brush to get the sawdust and any bits off, go around and check for pencil marks. You've made your cuts, they don't look great. Any old wipe, it'll just go round, even baby wipes to be honest, and just take those pencil marks off. Final dustpan and brush or hoover, and then your furniture goes back in and the room's all finished.